All right, so we've got the Hoka Half Marathon today, and there I am in the crowd. And it was a busy crowd. It took about 20 minutes just to get through to the start line, but we eventually got there. The atmosphere was buzzing, and away we go. So this is a big race for me today. I'd say this is the main thing that I've been training for in this first half of the year. So January, February, March, April, 4 months have all been spent training for this event. I am going for a half marathon PB. The last half marathon I did was Queenstown in New Zealand, and that was about 7 months ago, and I got a 1:29 there. So I'm looking to improve on that pretty considerably today, and in fact, I'm hoping to go a little bit closer to a 1:25.
And I'm going to be going for a PB. This is my fourth half marathon, and the A goal is to get a 1:25, and that's going to be very hard. That's going to be around a 4 minute per kilometer pace, so we're gonna have to work really hard to get there. I'm not starting in the first group as well, which could make things challenging. There's gonna be a lot of weaving, a lot of overtakes, especially in the first part of this race. So yeah, super excited.
And just as predicted, it is quite busy early on, so there's a lot of overtakes, and that was actually one of the big themes for this race. I think it ended up being just constant overtakes pretty much from the get-go until the end, which on the one hand is very encouraging. It is a good feeling, or it's a good sign when you're moving quickly, but it does make the race a little bit more challenging because sometimes you do need to adapt pretty dynamically, and you're going to see me do that in places during this run. So at this point, we're 400 meters in. I've already settled down into that 4 minute per kilometer pace, which is the goal pace. So in order to get a 1:25 half marathon, I'm going to have to average a 4:01 minute per kilometer pace, which is quite intimidating. That's quite intimidating for me. It was only 2 years ago where that was my 5K pace. So the fact that I'm even attempting to hold this for an entire 21.1 kilometer half marathon is insane. It's insane. But that's where we are, and that's what I'm going for today. So the metrics on the left-hand side, if you've seen my videos before, most of those will be familiar to you. We've got the total duration, we've got the distance, we've got the pace in minutes per kilometer, we've got heart rate, and then the one that I've added for today is the elevation in the bottom left. So this is the gradient. The higher the number, the steeper the hill. So right now we are going up a 4% gradient, which may not sound like much, but it's something that I'm definitely feeling, and something that is affecting my intensity even this early on in the race. Now, I have run this half marathon once before, and that was almost exactly a year ago, and I managed to get a 1:31, and I was very pleased with that time. And the conditions were relatively similar today to today. It was perhaps a little bit cooler last year, which maybe slightly edged it in its favor, but it was also raining last year as well. So I think it's about a washout. Even though it's a little bit hotter today, it's also a dry course, which could have a very favorable impact. But either way, we are looking to take off over 6 minutes from last year's time, which again is wild. The fact that I'm even going for that today feels crazy, but yet here we are. And so far, it's looking good. We're holding that 4-minute pace coming in to the end of the first kilometer. Now, the other half marathon I did recently was back in November, so that was just over 6 months ago, and this one I did in a 1:29, so it was already an improvement on the Hoka Half Marathon from last year, but that's still leaving quite a gap, so I'm looking to have improved about 4 minutes in just the past 6 months. Now, we are, of course, in Sydney today, and this really is one of the major road races in Sydney during the year. You have the Sydney Marathon, which, of course, is now a World Marathon Series event, and this is probably the #2 event in Sydney all year. It's probably the #1 half marathon in Sydney. The other big event is something called City to Surf, which is absolutely wild and has 70,000 people each year running 14 kilometers down to Bondi, which is also a spectacular event. And that's something we have to look forward to in September. But for right now, it's all half marathon vibes. We're running at about 8 a.m. in the morning, so the sun is coming up, but it's not too warm. It's the perfect running conditions. Again, just what a vibe. It's so nice to have that music out there on the course. You have some supporters there on the left-hand side. There were supporters all around, and it just gives a little bit of a boost every time you hear the encouragement. I'm lucky that I have my name on my bib, so people are able to call out my name, which again makes a huge difference. It's just those little bit of boosts that get you through the course. And right now we're entering probably the first major downhill. So you can see how that gradient, that elevation on the left-hand side is going to drop pretty steeply. And actually right there on the right-hand side, the leader just came through, and the leader started maybe 45 minutes before I did. But what this shows is that even though I'm going down a big hill right now, I'm going to have to come back up this hill towards the end of the race. So there goes somebody else coming up the hill, but this is something for me to prepare for later on. And at this point, we're now entering into a flat section, and the majority of this course is flat. We're going to be running around the Sydney Harbour area and through a lot of the boarded areas. So it is a pretty flat course, and now that we're down towards the bottom, this is the place where it's time for me to start making up time. So you can see how the pace, I've already kind of pushed it down towards the 3:45 minute per kilometer pace, and that is what I need to keep on holding for the time being. Okay, I am cutting a little bit of the corner there, and maybe that is a little bit cheeky. Actually, maybe that was a little bit too aggressive. But again, I am weaving so much, so I don't feel too bad about it. In some ways, it's either taking a little bit of a shortcut like that, or it's a collision, and I would much rather not have a collision, so please forgive me. And we're still continuing on with the downhill section of the course. It's a pretty fast area right now. So again, just trying to bank time as much as I possibly can. And the heart rate data on the left-hand side, unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be very accurate today. I am relying on a wrist-based sensor. I'm wearing a Garmin watch today, so the heart rate data is coming from the Garmin watch. Usually, I'm wearing a chest strap, which tends to be very accurate. That's what I wear for the majority of my races. But today, I was just too excited. I rushed out of the house, and all I had was my Garmin smartwatch. I did look at the data afterwards. It looked roughly in line, so I think it gives it a good ballpark. And right now, about 170, that's around my half marathon heart rate. So that is about what I can sustain. So this intensity right now is just about perfect, which is a great sign because right now we are still under goal pace. And at this point, we're just going under one of these bridges, and we're going to be coming into the area known as Barangaroo in just a minute. And you can see it starting to come into sight at this point. And this is where some of the larger buildings in Sydney are. And it's a very fun area to run as well. It's relatively flat. It's pretty much a runner's paradise. So what a cracking course we have for this half marathon. And we're now heading up towards Darling Harbour, which is one of the more touristy areas of Sydney. We're running right along the motorway, so this really is an incredibly rare experience to have. And still going along at a very good pace, so we're coming in to the end of the 4th kilometer, and time on the clock is still only 14 minutes, so we're right on goal pace, and more encouragingly, I'm still feeling good. I'm still feeling very good. One thing that I've done this month, which is actually quite rare for me, I've actually tapered pretty aggressively for this half marathon. So the largest volume that I hit in this block was 114 kilometers in a week. And I've actually had 6 down weeks since then leading into this half marathon. So I dropped the volume down to around 80 Ks and I held it there pretty steadily. And then the last 3 weeks have gone from 60K to 58K down to around 25K coming into this half marathon on a Sunday today. And tapering is actually something that I don't like doing too often, because I feel like if you taper too often, then you can begin to lose some fitness. Ultimately, it really is the consistency of training that leads to that fitness. So I'm a little bit hesitant to taper too often, but since this really is one of my top priorities for the year, I felt okay with a little bit of a taper for this one. And we're now coming up to that 4th kilometer, and we go through it in 15:58. So we're slightly below 4 minutes per kilometer for the first 4K. Again, we're right on track for a good half marathon today. And overall, this half marathon really did end up going exceptionally well for me today. I felt good pretty much from the start. So here we are at 4.6 Ks. I'm still kind of chugging along at that 4-minute pace, so a little bit slower just because we have a little bit of an incline here. But overall, I was able to hold that 4-minute pace for pretty much the majority of the race. And my strategy going in was to actually be a little bit slower. So the fact that I was able to hold the goal pace right from the start was super encouraging. So 10 Ks was done in under 40 minutes. 20 Ks was done just below 120. So then I had about 6 minutes to finish the last 1 and a bit Ks. And we ended up getting across the line in a 1:24:05.
So we finished that, we got 1:24:05. I'm very happy with that. That beats expectations.
And this was a really fun day. I'm going to keep on working on increasing volume, and I think there's still room for this to come down pretty considerably.